All right, so as wireless technicians, we live and breathe the airwaves, right? We're masters of RF. But what happens when that signal is absolutely perfect, yet the client is still offline? Well, that's when we have to look deeper into the critical and honestly often overlooked network layer. Now, just a quick heads up before we dive in, this is part 7 of a 10-part series. We're breaking down a fantastic, super detailed report from the experts over at RFI Detectives, who are part of Virtualization Options LLC. We're focusing specifically on the gold nuggets from Chapter 7. So yeah, let's bridge that gap. We've all obsessed over channels, power levels, antennas, you name it. But now, we're making a shift from the physical to the logical. We're heading into the network layer, and believe me, that's where a whole new set of challenges and solutions come into play. I mean, we've all been there, haven't we? You look at your tools, the signal strength is 5 bars. The RSSI looks absolutely beautiful, but the user is adamant. I can't get online. It's got to be one of the most frustrating things we deal with. When the air is clean, where do you even look next? And this is where that RFI Detectives report just hits the nail on the head. It states it perfectly. The problem, so often, isn't in the air at all. It's in the addressing. These network settings are absolutely fundamental, and if we're being honest with ourselves, a huge chunk of our troubleshooting time is spent right here, in this zone. So where do we even begin? Well, we start with the absolute cornerstone of most networks, DHCP. You can think of it as the network's gatekeeper. It's the one handing out the keys, the IP addresses, that lets you get on the information highway. And when it fails, nobody's going anywhere. It's that simple. Okay, we all know what it stands for, but what are the common ways it breaks? It's not always as simple as it didn't get an IP. Sometimes a client does get an address, but it's from a rogue access point somebody plugged into the wrong port. Or a classic one, the DHCP server just plain runs out of addresses to give. In both cases, the device looks connected, but it's got no real path to the internet. And this brings us to a really key decision that every network has to make. Should a device's address be temporary, or should it be permanent? This is the fundamental difference between getting a dynamic IP from DHCP or manually assigning a static IP. So let's look at these two side by side. On the left, you've got dynamic IP. This is the default setting for almost all our client devices. Laptops, phones, tablets. They get a temporary address, a lease, from the DHCP server. Simple. On the right, you have a static IP. This is a permanent, manually punched-in address that's absolutely crucial for things that need to be found reliably. Think servers, printers, and, your network gear. A super common mistake, a user tries to be helpful and sets a static IP on their laptop that's already being used by a printer. Instant conflict. Okay, now here's where things get really tricky when we're out in the field. Figuring this stuff out isn't just about the network itself. How we actually interact with these settings is completely dependent on the device we're holding. The client's operating system plays a massive role in what we can actually see and, more importantly, what we can change. And this is so critical. I really want to hammer this point home. There is no one-size-fits-all fix. A solution that works perfectly on a Windows laptop might be completely impossible to implement on an iPad. Our expertise has to include knowing the quirks and the limitations of every client OS out there. And boy, do they vary. On a Windows machine, you can really get under the hood. You can check for manually assigned DNS servers, you can dive into the device manager and roll back a driver update. With macOS, things are a lot more locked down, but a great pro tip is to create a new network location. It basically resets all your settings to a clean default without blowing away the old configuration. And for iOS or Android, honestly, your most powerful tool is often the simplest one. Just hit Forget This Network and rejoin. That forces a brand new DHCP lease and clears out any bad settings. So here's the bottom line. You can be the world's greatest RF expert, but if you can't spot a DHCP problem or an IP conflict, you're only seeing half the picture. Mastering this network layer isn't just a nice-to-have skill anymore. It's a non-negotiable part of the job. It's what separates a good tech from a great one. So I'll leave you with this thought. The next time you're on a job and a user has that perfect 5-bar signal but zero connectivity, is your first instinct going to be to check their IP configuration? Because thinking beyond the airwaves might just be the key that unlocks your absolute toughest cases.